phone and computer access. Nope, recording in progress. Perfect. And I recognize a few of you, some of your names, your faces, but I'm the Assistive Technology Services Coordinator and a speech pathologist at ALS Northwest. And I cover the whole state and Southwest Washington. So everywhere that ALS Northwest covers is kind of my territory. I'm going to be the go-to person for really anything related to communication or accessing your phone or computer, any kind of assistive technology that's not the big mobility equipment like wheelchairs, walkers. So everything else kind of goes to me. The first thing before I get started is we have some really lovely people at OHSU in Portland who are doing research on brain-computer interfaces. Some of you might have heard of those. Basically, it's, you know, a cap that goes on your head and they pick up signals from your brain and they translate those in order to control a computer screen. BCI, brain-computer interface, is in the early stages, so it's not necessarily something you see out on the street, although I did see a video today of someone showcasing their BCI and using it to control a computer, but that's still in the very early stages. So I actually participated in this study as well when they were looking for controls. And basically you go in, they put a cap on your head, they train you to kind of think certain thoughts when you see things on the screen. And then by the end, they ask you to spell different letters just based on your thoughts. It's pretty cool. You get compensation for each visit, so up to $100. I believe they will travel to you. So even if you're not within the Portland area, please reach out. I'll send a copy of this PowerPoint so you can have this information. But they're looking for people, and I've reached out a couple times to get more participants. So anything you can do if you feel comfortable and eager to just be a part of the research or learn more about brain-computer interface would be really great. So just wanted to throw that out there. So a little about me. This is my cat Stranger, and he is right behind my computer screen. He was sleeping up until about the moment that I started this presentation, so he'll probably make an appearance. He's a very sweet cat. I've been a speech pathologist for about 5 years. I've worked with ALS Northwest for about a little over 2. And my first kind of experience with ALS, working with people with ALS, was in graduate school. I had a clinical placement with Providence Home Health, where I would say about 75% of the people we worked with were people with ALS. Because we did a lot of communication support and worked with the technology. And so I really got to dive in deep and, you know, just ended up really loving working with people with ALS and speech devices and just really fell in love with the work. And then in my spare time, I'm learning to oil paint. I like to travel, bake, cook, and I'm also learning to sew and more. So that's a little bit about me. So speech language pathology, a lot of people, when they think of it, think of, you know, kids learning to say their sounds, right? So that's kind of the common belief. Some people don't know what it is. Some people go, you know, oh, you help with my speech, but what if I don't have difficulties with my speech? I wanted to kind of give an overview of all the things we can support with in general. So we help with fluency, so that can be like getting your speech to come out in a way that's smooth. So people with stuttering, anyone who, I'm doing it right now, who has maybe difficulty finding their words and getting the speech out in a way that's kind of fluent, I guess. I don't know if I'm describing that well. Speech production, so difficulty with speech. If you notice any slurring in your speech, if you notice any weakness, that's something we can support with. Language, cognition. Not a lot of people know that we evaluate and treat cognition. Voice, feeding and swallowing, so any trouble swallowing or eating food we can help with. And auditory rehabilitation has to do with hearing. So let's say someone has hearing aids and they're kind of learning how to use them and how to adapt and communicate with these new devices, that's something we can support with. In general, I'm not saying my role, I'm just saying as a general rule, speech pathologists are certified to do those things. We can also work in different settings, so home health, outpatient, a skilled nursing facility, hospital, ALS comprehensive clinic, and a nonprofit like ALS Northwest. Okay, so this is where I want to really kind of focus in because I think there can be a lot of confusion about, you know, what I do as an SLP versus what someone at clinic does as an SLP versus what someone in home health or outpatient does. Some people with ALS might have 2 or 3 speech pathologists they're working with at one time, and it's kind of tough to know who does what and how to kind of coordinate services. So my role at ALS Northwest is really to connect people with resources. So connect them to the clinic, connect them to maybe loaner equipment or, anything they might need. I'm kind of there trying to connect them or get them to the place they need to go. Some general education, filling any gaps in care. So if someone goes on to hospice and can't receive services anymore, they're in rural areas or maybe don't have insurance, then that's a place where I can step in and provide services. But for the most part, I'm here to kind of connect you with people and help coordinate and help get you to where you need to go to get support. Home health and outpatient, they're going to be the ones who will see you kind of on a regular basis. So if you're working at learning a speech device, or maybe you want to get your own speech device or work on your swallowing, those 2 settings are going to be the places where you'll do that and get really consistent, probably weekly support from someone. They can also help with voice banking too. So these are kind of the 2 main point people that you're really going to go to, depending on if you're at home and can't leave your house to get services, or you can go out to get services. Your ALS clinic speech pathologist, they're going to be the one who will make referrals to other people. They're going to kind of track overall progression and look at kind of the big picture. And then communicate with the team to make sure everyone's on the same page and giving you a really high quality level of care. So the visits are a lot shorter, but they're just kind of looking at the big picture. And then, and here's my cat, hospital or skilled nursing SLPs. Typically, when you go to the hospital or skilled nursing, it's because there's been a change and you're just trying to get back to where you were. So they're not really looking at like a long-term plan. They're just trying to kind of get you back so you can get back home or you can get to the next level of care. So throughout this your entire journey with ALS, you might see, different SLPs at different times and switch back and forth. And I think the important thing to know is that, myself and the clinic SLPs are going to be the 2 people who can really help you kind of connect all the dots and get connected with people because we're looking at the more big picture. Okay, this is my, passion is bad Photoshop. I was working very hard on this. So this is me as an octopus. This is how I want you to remember me. If the pink hair wasn't enough, here you go. So imagine me kind of using my tentacles to connect you with different people and going, oh, over here, I'm going to grab this for you. And over here, I'm going to grab this for you. So I just wanted a visual of kind of what that looks like. So I might work with your comprehensive clinic team at OHSU or Providence or, any other clinic. And I might say, hey, you saw this person at clinic. Do they need anything? And they go, oh yeah, actually down here, they need a piece of equipment. Maybe they need a voice amplifier that they want to try out. And could you actually talk to them about, voice banking or just kind of general information about communication? So we all kind of keep in touch. We all kind of coordinate in order to help you get the best services. Okay, So now we're going to get to phone and computer access. I just like to preface all of that so that everyone kind of knows, if you haven't met me before or heard of my position, you kind of know what to expect and when to come to me. You know, if all else fails, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to connect you with the person that could help support you. So a disclaimer, this is not an exhaustive list of resources, and it changes all the time. So I could present this to you, and then a couple months from now, software changes, it's not compatible, it costs a different amount. So just know that I want to give general info. I want to give you some general resources that I tend to use, but it's always good just to reach out, just to make sure as time goes on that these are still applicable, and it's the most up-to-date resource out there. Okay. Usually I would stop and ask if anyone has questions, but I know we're recording, so I'm just going to keep going straight through. Please keep in mind, if you have questions, you know, write them in the chat or save them for the end, and I'm happy to go back and revisit some of these topics. So I know it can be a lot. So phone access. This chart is mostly for your reference so that when you have this PowerPoint, you can look back and kind of compare. So I don't expect anyone to memorize this, but I wanted to have kind of a side-by-side comparison of Android versus Apple phones and kind of all of the different accessibility settings that you can access on each. A lot of people will say, well, should I get an Android? Should I get an iPhone? And it used to be that Android tended to be a little better than iPhone in terms of connecting it to your speech device, but that's kind of changed. They're pretty similar. Just a few things to keep in mind. If you're using a text-to-speech app on your phone, so something that you type into that, you know, says a voice out loud, if you are having difficulty speaking, one of the limitations is that Apple can send that message straight through the phone to the other person on the other end. Whereas Android, you have to have the phone on speakerphone, and then you have to have another device listening to that message. So Apple makes it a little easier. You can just send that audio straight through. The other person can hear what you're saying using the app, whereas Android, you don't have that ability. So that's one limitation just to keep in mind. They both have ways of controlling your phone. If your voice is strong, but you're having difficulty using your hands, they both have pretty good ways to do that. So I would say they're pretty similar, although Apple tends to be a little more easy to use and advanced. Switch control. So when I say switch, I mean like a button that you can use to control your phone, or you know, maybe facial gestures. So there's some features where you can smile, and by smiling, that does a certain command on your phone. So maybe I smile and it turns my phone on, or maybe I blink and it opens my messages. So there's a few shortcuts you can kind of program just using your facial movement. Apple does have eye tracking on some of their newer phones. I haven't played around with it a lot yet, but I do know it exists, where you just move your eyes and then it can pick up those movements. Both have accommodations for touch, so both have settings that you can change to make it easier to touch your phone. So you can make buttons bigger, you can move the buttons around. There's just a few features that can help you with that if you're going, oh man, I can still use my hands, but it's a little more difficult than it used to be. Okay. Personalized voice is a new feature on iPhones that just came out, where you can record and bank your voice. So you record 150 phrases and then it creates a voice that sounds similar to you. That's on iPhone only at this point. And then you can take those recordings that you did and you can send them to another voice banking company and make a voice out of that. Because right now you're kind of limited to Apple devices only with that personal voice feature. So for example, you record a personal voice on your iPhone and you could only use it on other Apple devices. But we do have the ability to take those phrases, send them off, and then that voice could be used on other devices, like a speech device or an Android phone. Again, all of these things you don't necessarily have to know. There are people like myself who can support you through this process and know all of the details and everything, but just generally know that this feature exists on Apple and it doesn't on Android at this time. And then Phone Link is a way for you to mirror your phone so you can access all your apps to a Windows device. So, you know, most of the time you can get to things through a web browser like Google Chrome or Safari, but let's say that you can't. There's an app that's only on your phone and it's not on your computer. This way you can make your phone mirror to your screen and you can control your phone from your computer. So it's available for both. With Apple, you have to have a little bit newer. You have to have Windows 11 to use an iPhone. So for the most part, everything is pretty comparable, but there are a few differences to keep in mind. Okay, so I wanted to just give some of my common recommendations based on strengths. So for phone, let's say your voice is a strength. You have a really strong voice. Maybe you're having difficulty moving your arms or legs or your hands. So I might recommend voice access or voice control to be able to control your phone with your voice. I might recommend head tracking, where your phone camera is tracking the movement of your head, and then that translates to a little mouse on your screen. I might recommend a speech to text app. And, oh, sorry, not like speech assistant AAC, scratch that out. I didn't mean to put that there. Speech to text app where you type into your phone and then it types the text for you. Auto speakerphones, so just certain accessibility features I might recommend so that you don't have to be pressing buttons every time someone calls. It just turns on automatically. And then sometimes smart assistants like your Alexa or Siri can be really helpful in order to help you, make phone calls or just do, add things to your calendar, things like that. It really just depends on what you're comfortable with, your, resources and kind of how complex you want to make your system, right? There's obviously way more out there than this, but these are just some really common ones that I recommend to people. If your arms and hands are a strength, obviously just touching your phone and using it as you would is going to be really the main way that I would recommend doing it. We want to use the parts of your body and the movements that are strongest and most consistent. And phones are really great because most of us are pretty used to using our cell phones. We have them on us pretty much all the time. They're portable. I mean, as long as you can keep using your cell phone, I try and put all of the software and everything we need on the phone, because once you start using tablets and computers, it gets a little harder to transport and takes a little more training and just it's a little less kind of functional. So I would just continue to tell people to use their phone. Maybe we put on a text-to-speech app like Speech Assistant. Maybe you try a mount. So you have something that holds your phone in front of you so that you don't have to hold your phone up and fatigue your arms. Or a stylus that helps you touch something on the screen without having to use your finger and really kind of pinpoint where you want to press. We might adjust the sizes on the screen, or we might use kind of a mouse keyboard combo. There are mice that are a little bit easier and less fatiguing on your hands. So really, we want to reduce fatigue. We want to make sure you're accurate. And we also want to, let you use your phone as long as possible if that's something you would like to do. Okay. And then let's say your eyes, head, and neck are really your strong point. So moving your eyes, moving your head, those seem to be the parts that are spared the most. So using a speech generating device, and when I say that, what I typically mean is a computer with an eye gaze camera on the bottom. And they can look all sorts of different ways. But I wish I had a picture of one right now. But most of the time, they're just like a 13-inch screen, about the size of a laptop screen. And then you mount them somewhere so that it just kind of hangs right out in front of you. And what you would do is you would just move your eyes and the camera follows the reflection in your eye to figure out where you're looking on the screen. Now, this is something that takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of planning and preparation to get one of these devices, but it is available and it allows you to access your phone, texting, the internet, communication. And so it can be really helpful to a lot of people. And, I like to think that those devices, if it's something that you're interested in, if you feel motivated to use it, if you have support to help you use it in the home, then it can be really great and bring back a lot of access that maybe you've lost. And then I might, pair to phone links so that you can access your phone apps too. I've had people who have used speech devices who have just started out kind of practicing by playing Wordle or playing solitaire. And that's kind of how they get started with it. And then they start using their phone. So just kind of starting off with something that's really motivating and exciting for them. And then as they practice and learn, then they start going into the more advanced using their phone, accessing the internet, things like that. These are just a few kind of common equipment, pieces of equipment I might recommend. So this is a phone mount that we often have in our loan closet. And it just clips on anywhere to a wheelchair, to a bed railing, to a side table. This is the Steve's Way smartphone kit. It's a free kit that you can actually follow this link and you can request a free kit from Steve's Way. And essentially it's just a kit of items with instructions online that kind of tell you how to access your phone with your voice or with a mouse or this custom keyboard which acts as a switch. So definitely check this out if it's something you're interested in. It's made by someone who Steve has ALS and was finding that it was difficult to use his phone, and so created this kit. And I have one in the office if you ever want to take a look. And then here's some styluses that I like to use as well. We have a lot of these items in our loan closet. Some of the items I have available to just try before you buy. Some of the items I have available for loan. And some I don't have, but you're welcome to purchase and use. So it's always best just to reach out if you have a question or if there's something you feel like you could benefit from. I'm happy to look and see what we have and help you find a solution. These are just common, this is common software for your phone. Okay, computer access. We're just going to speed through this. Common computer recommendations based on your strengths. So if your voice and speech, if those are strong, I might recommend voice access or voice control. Now, for an Android tablet or an iPad, you would use voice access or voice control. Some people, not a lot, but some people, if they're using their Windows computer and they want to be able to control their entire desktop just with their voice, they might use something that's called Dragon, which is a software that allows you to control your computer. I don't have a lot of experience with it. It's something that I know a lot of people have used. I know a lot of doctors use it to dictate their notes. So it's a really popular product and it's been around a while. They do not have a trial version available, and so I'm reluctant to recommend it just because I haven't tried it out myself. I don't know many people who have tried it, but just know it's out there and an option. Head tracking or eye tracking, and then speech to text. Similar to the phone. Okay, and then computer recommendations based on strengths in your arms and hands. So again, using different computer, different mice, different keyboards, switches, a lap tray table or laptop stand can be really helpful for people, or even a Bluetooth keyboard that sits on your lap so your arm isn't having to lift up and get fatigued, and then having your screen a little further away. So just really thinking about how to reduce fatigue and not make your body work harder than it has to. Styluses and mounts, touch accommodations, and then I can't read what this bottom one says because this is blocking it. What does that say? Adjusting text.
Adjusting text button size.
Thank you. Yeah. There's a screen sharing bar down there that is blocking everything. So yeah, so adjusting text and button size. This is going to depend on what kind of computer you have. If you have a Mac versus Windows, you're really limited to, you know, which web browser you're using. And are there different, are there plugin options for adjusting those things? What are the computer settings? So it's really a case-by-case basis. You know, I think it's really going to vary. Sometimes a bigger screen is the answer, sometimes a smaller screen is the answer, or adjusting the mouse sensitivity. So it's really going to depend, but these are just some kind of basic things you could look at or look into. And then let's say your eyes, head, and neck are your strength. So using a speech generating device with eye or head tracking, and adding a banked voice, pairing to phone link, and then join in software for accessing social media apps, which I will go through. Join in is really great. This is something that you can use with eye gaze, and it's a software that is updated really often. And it basically allows you to access with your eyes all of these apps here. And it's just a little friendlier than using your web browser and trying to get your eyes on a teeny tiny point. Smile Mouse is another one that's really interesting. So it tracks your facial movements. So for example, you could smile to close out of a program, or you could raise your eyebrows to resize a screen. So you can kind of tell it what you want different facial expressions to do. Now this is a little tricky because if you feel like your facial movements are inconsistent or getting weaker, then it might not be a good option because, you know, you wouldn't want to necessarily learn something new like this and then have to switch to a different system. So it really just kind of depends on what that's looking like. Like, what are your symptoms like? How have they changed over time? And what remains a strength? And then there's a link here for phone link as well. I put this picture in here because I really want to stress that technology is only helpful if it aligns with your values, needs, and your capacity. So, for example, let's say you just got diagnosed and things are overwhelming, you have a million appointments, and, you know, yeah, maybe some of these things would technically be really helpful to you. But if you're in a place where you're just not ready to, you know, learn a new technology or try something out or incorporate it into your routine, it's not going to be helpful. If, you know, you feel like eye gaze would be helpful because you have use of your eyes, but you're going, it's too much technology for me. You know, I prefer the letter board. right? I can communicate fine with that. That's what I want to use. Then that's the best technology for you. So I'm really about working with you, working with your family and caregivers and your healthcare providers to figure out what fits your needs best and not just say, I have this piece of technology, it's going to work because it's technology and it's going to solve all your problems. So it really is a conversation and it's something that could change over time. And so, um, you know, I just really want to emphasize that because I think there's a lot of pressure to use these devices and utilize all these different technologies. And, you know, ultimately it's your choice and that's okay. It's okay if you say you don't want to use something or you want to wait and try it later. I will give you my recommendations. I'll tell you, you know, based on experience, what I recommend, but ultimately, yeah, it's your decision and I'm happy to work with people and meet them where they're at. So I think that is it.